Time now to turn our attention to business stories. With me is Alan Hyams. Alan's a member of the Manchester Institute of Chartered Accountants, a former chair, I believe, as well. Welcome, Alan. Let's start talking with the Royal Bank of Scotland. Now, what's going on? The directors are threatening to resign, and it's all over bonuses, I understand.
Yes, the performance bonuses are reputed to be 1.5 billion, if you can think of that kind of number.
That's an astonishingly large amount of money.
Well, it's not so big when you realise, when they tell you that they paid £900 million out last time, so it's a sort of a 55% increase. Not that we would agree that that's sensible,
well,
and neither does the government.
Well, the banks clearly do. I mean, the trouble is the banks want to pay out this money, and the Chancellor is saying the government might step in and stop them because we own 70% of the bank now as taxpayers, as we do with us. That's
right, and I think there are a few points here. A little bit of humility from the bankers wouldn't go amiss.
Yeah.
Where would these guys go if they resign? Who's going to employ them?
Good point.
And I think the final point is, who's banking with who?
Well, yeah, it's public money, and is there any sympathy, though? I mean, all right, there's no public sympathy for bankers, none at all. You'll not be able to go out into the streets of Manchester tonight and find some sympathy. But if you walk the halls of the business communities, who perhaps understand a bit more about it than I do and the man in the street does, any sympathy for bankers there? Do they understand that, you know, you've got to pay top dollar to get top executives?
I think there's very little sympathy, because most business people are hurting.
Yeah. So what then of the assertion by the Treasury spokesman for the Liberal Democrats, Vince Cable, a man who most people seem to think knows what he's talking about, that the government should call their bluff and accept their resignations? Is that likely, do you think?
It'll be very interesting. My personal view is Vince Cable's absolutely right.
Yeah.
If we let the RBS board steamroller through these huge bonuses, then we've lost control. What's the point of owning 75%?
The government have tried, though. They've said to the banks, you must lend this money we've given you, and they're not doing patently. So the government's not really imposing itself on the banks so far, is it?
Agreed.
Agreed. Let's talk about Openshaw, because there's an awful lot going on there. £40 million district centre is to open, quite when we're not sure. Retail and office space as well, good for the community and good for business, do you think?
In the long term, yes. I think the article talks about bringing family back into the area and family values, and that can only be a good thing. I think the problem with the development is the timescale and whether we have actually got the capacity to actually fill shops and offices. There's
still a lot of retail space in Greater Manchester empty at the moment, isn't it?
Correct.
It was built 2 or 3 years ago. So, I mean, it's great for the community. Maybe the economy will have turned around by the time these retail spaces are available.
Absolutely.
And they can be filled. Good news if you want to work for John Lewis, 200 new jobs at a call centre in Didsbury. So, despite the recession, they're doing quite well, aren't they?
That's great news, and it's nice to know that they're prepared to back our region, because they're a national company and they could put the call centres anywhere.
Does it mean people in business who work for John Lewis elsewhere may lose their jobs, though?
Well,
I mean, are they just moving jobs around, Alan, or are they creating new jobs?
I think it's a combination of the two. I think if let's say you're working in the Birmingham store on the phones, they'll offer to relocate you up here, but unlikely to be taken up. Hopefully they'll find other jobs for those people in the store environment.
But
generally, a great story for our region.
Good news for the region, and it's been welcomed by the Withington MP, John Leach, who thinks it's terrific. Alan, thanks very much indeed for your thoughts.